Hello, my fellow Americans. 'Tis I, the Rumpled One. It is Thursday, June the 13th, the year 2013. And yesterday I completed my 57th lap around the sun. And have to wonder about what it all means. It's funny, I was reading a book that I picked up at the library. I'll have to do a book report on it later. But it talked about, the name of the book is Doing More with Less, about frugality. It made me think about a few things because you know how I like to go to the thrift store and pick up things. But you just have to wonder, with the way America's going, price of gas, price of food, what it's going to be like 10, 20 years down the road. And I think we've hit 7 billion people on the planet, heading toward 8 billion. It's just going to be too many people. Just too many people. That's one of the reasons I'm out here at the ranch. Because the population density is about maybe 10 people per square mile. I mean, I've got my little piece of land. A couple of my neighbors to the north there, they've got their little piece of land, and a couple neighbors that way, they've got 160 some acres, and that guy's got 260 some acres. So not really around a lot of people. I mean, Mayberry here only has about 3,400 people, so there's just not a lot of people. Won't have that crush. But still, I mean, where are we going to get the food? Where are we going to get the water? Where are we going to get the gasoline, the energy? There's just so many people out there. And government, in their infinite wisdom, these elected politicians, all they do is tax. See, to me, tax is just another word for take. Because that's what they do. They take from us. And they just keep taking. There was an article in one of the papers from the county to the south, and they were talking about how these people in these quote-unquote, these hick counties, you know, since they don't vote for more taxes, that when they run out of money, how they deserve, you know, the fate that befalls them. See, here, some of these counties depended on federal timber funds. Well, that money's going bye-bye. Once again, scarcity. Scarcity of resources. And so, of course, now the government looks to the people to pay up. It's like they got to take from the people, right? To provide all these services. But it always seems, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this before, that the services that always seem to suffer the most are the services we need the most. It's never the services we need the least. We never hear them talking about laying off office workers or people that work in the parks. No, it's always fire and police. Fire and law enforcement. But you see, when you think about it, in a small area like this, at any given point, we might only have 1 or 2 police on duty. But people, pretty much law-abiding citizens, don't really have the type of crime that you have in those big cities with a lot of people, where the competition for resources is bigger. And the disparity between the haves and the have-nots is just so much more on display. See, I was reading that book, and I came to realize that if you sit back and you look at the big picture, you can think of everything as a resource. The land, the trees, the air, the water, the oil in the ground, water in the ground. Everything is a resource. The animals, even people, can be considered resources. But then let's start the divide game. And you see, so you got people, And then you got resources. And so whenever you get people start to come together and everybody has a little bit different ideas about the way things should be, then you have to establish rules or laws about how things are going to work and how things can work and how things aren't going to work. So you establish rules. So basically you have resources, you have people, and you have rules. Part of the problem is that when certain people get in power and they start making rules about how the resources are going to get divvied up, that's when you get that disparity. You start to get the haves and the have-nots. I mean, if you think about it, part of the problem is that people aren't working. And I don't mean working at a job, I mean working. See, when I get out here and cut wood, I'm working. I mean, what is work? It's moving mass over a distance. That's the definition of work from physics. And you see, those logs, they're a mass, and I have to move them over. That's work. And when I do that, I expend energy. And when I expend energy, I burn, so I don't get big and fat. And if you look at this American population and the incidence of obesity, overweight and obesity, it's 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3 in the 21st century. Something's wrong. But where does that come from? You got resources, you got people, you got rules. Well, we all know that putting rules and laws on what you can and can't eat doesn't work. It just, people are going to do what they want to do. But see, it gets back to my point. People aren't working. Because if you have to go out there in the garden and dig the earth and plant the seed and water and weed, you're going to be expending energy. And the bigger the garden, the more energy you're going to expend. But you get to reap and sow those benefits, right? Because I'll get to go out there and pick the corn and the tomatoes and the strawberries and the beans and everything else that I planted. So for my efforts, I get rewarded. But you see, most people don't work. So they don't put forth the effort, so they get no reward. And how did that come to be in our society? Well, food stamps. People don't have to work. They get fed. I mean, it's always funny how on Facebook you see those do not feed the animals because then they'll get lazy and they won't hunt. They can't take care of themselves. Well, people are no different. I mean, same thing. The old give a man a fish, he eats today, teach him how to fish, he eats forever. It's the same thing. It's really not that difficult. It's just some work. Sometimes it's hard work. You sweat. A lot of people don't like to sweat. They'd rather sit back and watch TV like Jerry Springer or Judge Judy or Judge Joe Brown or all those other ones, People's Court or Jeopardy or The Price is Right or Wheel of Fortune or American Idol or Dancing with the Stars. I mean, hey, it's okay to watch TV. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's kind of like balance. So that book, Doing Less with More, made me focus on resources, people, rules. You see, when you lump it all together, then you can sit back and you can see why things aren't quite working very well for most people. I mean, the disparity between the haves and have-nots has never been bigger. This is the 21st century. It's never been, somehow things have gotten so apart because I think I've done a video about the myth of the middle class. There's a book by that title. Because there is no middle class. You see, basically you have poor, and then you have what's called the working poor. Those are the people who are 1 or 2 paychecks away from total financial disaster. And we saw that happen at the turn of the century with the big meltdown in 2006, 2008, when the housing bubble imploded and the dot-com imploded. But you see, you had people being compensated for not working. Oh, sure, they showed up at a job, but they didn't really work. They didn't really produce anything of value. They basically just moved numbers around on the keyboard or using a keyboard. No value was created. But somehow, they got compensated for this. It's like the system's gone mad. Once again, let's go back. Look at the rules. We've got people in power that make these rules, and in this case, with these bubbles, especially the real estate bubble, we had people who took away rules that were put in place to restrain and constrain the financial institutions from doing things that aren't beneficial to everybody. You saw what happened, called deregulation. Of course, I think the less laws and rules, the better. But then again, you have to be aware of what's going on so you don't get suckered in, or you don't get penalized or hurt. Buyer beware. For example, I remember growing up back in the 60s and 70s, and the idea that somebody would charge somebody 10% interest, that was something that only the mafia did. I just picked up a credit card application for Chevron gasoline because they have this 10 cents off a gallon for the first 60 days, and to me that's free money. 10 cents off a gallon when gas is almost $4, that's not a bad saving. It won't cost me anything. But when you look at the not so fine print, they're charging somewhere 25, 26, 27% interest. That's right. I think it's a 26.99 or 25.99% interest. I'm wondering why the 0.99. Why not just round it up? But I think back in the 70s, there was something called a usury law that would have prevented that. So now some poor unsuspecting person gets his credit card and they charge it up and they can't pay. Now they're hit with 25% or more interest. That's just nuts. See, me, I only use it just to buy the gas, and then at the end of the month, I'll just pay it off. I mean, it's kind of crazy when it almost takes 40 or 50 bucks to fill up one of them Rangers. That's just crazy. I mean, a 5-gallon can, almost 20 bucks to fill it up. Actually, I had a 6-gallon can. But that's what happens when you let these people control the rules, make the rules, and impose the rules on the rest of us. So I know this video, I've kind of talked all over the place here. But just remember, think about things. People, resources, rules. Just look at your world and just see how those things interplay, how they connect, how they mesh. Maybe it'll help you understand what's going on and why we, the people, need to wake up. and smell the tyranny.